Okay, Katie, I think we're ready to start streaming. Welcome, everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma, and thank you for joining us this morning on Zoom or YouTube. Hope that didn't hurt. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together yet so apart. Each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect, that hands can never touch, that space can never hold, and time can never measure. Sophia Lyon Fowers. Do we have any announcements?
Right here. Okay. There will be a board meeting on, darn it, I just forgot today. That bothers me. A board meeting on the 20th of this month, and then on the 27th, we will be having elections for board positions. 2 new people coming in to fill board positions are Jim and Tony. Please help them with your vote. Also, please, if you have any pledges that you haven't gotten into Carrie yet, please, or Karen, please get that into them, please. And then the therapeutic writing group also will be meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. I brought it back an hour to help some people. But we have been having wonderful success with it so far, and I hope to see more people there. So 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, therapeutic writing. Thank you.
Any other? Yes, Jim.
So this is actually in addition to the newsletter. The newsletter came out recently, and Lucy, thanks much. There's 2 on the last page, the church board and then the board nominees. There's 6 people listed there. We have 7 on the board. So in both of those lists, our secretary, Costa Bryce, needs to be inserted in there. So just for your information, that Costa's also on that list.
Thank you.
That's it.
And a fine secretary she is.
Yep.
Any other announcements? Yes, Jean, you're muted.
The food's still great in New Mexico.
And so it is. I've never been. Any other announcements? Our speaker next Sunday will be Rabbi Rami Shapiro, and he will be talking about 3 shifts of mind that just might save humanity, though I doubt it. Sounds like Rabbi Rami Shapiro, doesn't it? I'll continue with the service then if there are no more announcements. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. George Odell. While we take a moment of silence, I would like for people to think about Bill Davis and Sherry. I haven't heard from him this week, but I do know that she's failing fast. And also Jean's wife and her mourning for her mother.
Sleepy little boy. Little sleepy little boy. Yeah. Good boy. You good little boy. Good little boy.
This morning we welcome Julie Ann Coleman, and she is going to talk about being a pagan in the Bible Belt. Julie.
Thank you for having me. So a little background into like why I am the way I am. So my mother, her grandmother was an Appalachian Baptist, meaning not only was she a Christian, but very many old wives' tales, almost witchy background. It was all about holistic life and just surviving. She was born in the 1800s. She was a very amazing woman. She was blind in her later life, but she was deaf her entire life. So growing up around her, you had to speak clearly and directly to her so that she could see what you were saying. My father's family, just Southern Baptist. My mother had her Baptist background, but my grandfather was Catholic, so they raised my mother Episcopalian. So you can imagine life was quite interesting as a child, having a mom who was very immersed in being her identity as a Catholic and Episcopalian, depending on the day. And my father, who, after losing 2 children and burying them, went full-blown atheist. He went from being a very active member of his church to totally walking away. So raising me and my brother, it was, let us make our own decisions, but at the same time, we went to church every Sunday. My father and my mother both made sure of that. We went to a little church in Cedartown, Georgia, and I was raised in that whole dynamic. Then years later, I started looking into Wicca and, being the dark teenager and all of that. But it really felt like something real versus seeing all of my family members who were all over the map with their religious beliefs. They cherry picked. They were not always the best people, but on Sunday, they were in church acting like they had done no wrong all week. So I questioned a lot growing up and was basically told it's a matter of faith. And I'm like, okay, but what about the rest? Like, if you believe, then shouldn't you believe all of it and take it to heart? They very often told me, that I was just an awful person because I questioned everything put in front of me. I questioned, why are there so many religions? Why do you think yours is the only one that's right? I questioned why we're taught that it is a Christian God of love, yet all I hear about is the negativity and the hate and why you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't like this person based on the color of their skin or the way they believe, but they're good people, but we should hate them. So I struggled a lot with that. Then my mother asked me very nicely to not practice Wicca, she was okay with atheism. She'd rather me not believe. But I had faith that there was more in this world, that there was, maybe everybody is wrong, maybe everybody's right. So out of respect for my mother, I did get rid of all my books and I set my practice aside. Fast forward numerous years later, I've watched people who claim to be something that they aren't turn their backs on people just because they would believe politically or just because they want this, that, or the other. I've seen so much ugly, but the one group that I kind of saw and related to were your pagans and your Wiccans who were standing by saying, I love people no matter what. I may not agree. I may not want to be around them, but I still love them. And that resonated within me. Living in the Bible Belt, you don't see too many people or interact with too many people who are accepting of beliefs outside of their own. It's all about the Christian God, the Christian way of life. And if you don't agree with that, keep your mouth shut and just keep on walking. You are villainized for everything. But I sit back and I know as a human, I don't hate. I was very blessed by having the parents I have. The big bad atheist dad who raised me in moving around constantly because he was in the Air Force. So there was no hate. My mom was a hippie, and my mother is one of those people who firmly believes in the Christian God of love. So I had very loving parents, very, very good people raising me. So especially the last 4 years that were obviously heinous to most people, I was very blessed to have my parents who stood behind me saying, I may not agree with you. I may not appreciate what you believe in, my mother, but I respect that you have a faith in something, that you have a belief in something that is good, that you are a good person. The number of church invites while working, I'm a hairstylist. Well, now I'm a cosmetology instructor, but working behind the chair in a salon, so many of my clients would invite me to church. And I worked on Sundays to keep from having to say, okay, because I felt guilty for saying no, but on the same token, they would sit in my chair and spout negativity. You know, liberals are going to kill us all. There's no good liberal on earth. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you don't even know me outside of my salon. I am a liberal and I take pride in how I feel, but I'm not going to disrespect you for it, but thank you for the disrespect to me. I appreciate it. And it was pretty constant. I did have a few clients, like Ricky was one of my clients. That's how I met him. And there was never any negativity or hate, but for the most part, it was very difficult. And I knew some parts of myself would have to be hidden. Some parts of me and who I am to my very core, I had to put aside because it's not appreciated. It's not liked. I'm very open on my Facebook about most of what I believe in. And my family, they really have nothing to do with me. Many members of my family, I scare them because of my beliefs. I don't have clients on my Facebook because of what I post and how I believe. I can't often post the Sabbats on Facebook or say marry me and blessed be and, you know, talk about the things I enjoy doing, like my gardening. But, you know, like to my core, I sit back and I'm like, while you're accusing me of witchcraft because of how I believe and talking to my plants and spellcraft, you pray, you have an intention and pray for something so hard. It has the same effect. It's proven that there's power in words, whether it be a prayer or a wish or a desire, there is power in that word. That's why we pray. That's why we put faith in our words. That's why you either speak it into existence or ask kindly, hey, please don't speak that into existence. We're having a calm day in the salon. Don't say it slow. You're going to ruin everything. I talk to my plants and they grow like crazy. I believe there are things you can do for a cold that's going to help. One of the biggest things, a very dark time has been the whole separation due to COVID. I was like many others. I was having to teach behind a screen. I wasn't seeing people. I wasn't interacting except with my son. Ricky knows my son, not the easiest thing to do. He's a great human. He is a great person, but he's just like me, so we clash. So one of the things I did was I went out there and started gardening. Then I started looking at the different gardening tips from other pagans and witches and Wiccans who were like, hey, put this crystal in your garden. And I'm like, okay, bet I'll do it. And that really started it. Then I started buying so many books. But again, I have to hide them in a room where, not that people aren't welcome, but people aren't welcome. Don't go into my private space because you'll be completely mortified, or, you know, I run the risk of losing friends and, you know, people I love, all because they see a book about Wicca or they see a book about deities. They see a book about witchcraft and they're just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Well, I'm not sacrificing kittens. So can you please just respect just a little bit of space? So I had to move all of that into like my makeup room. Most people don't have interest in all my makeup, so it's safe. My altar space is in my makeup room. That way it stays safe. I used to, well, still on my old car, there's a sticker that says Basic Witch. A client of my school's saw that. And basically she went to the owners of the school and told them that she would prefer if I have nothing to do with her, not even book her appointments, because I'm an evil, evil human. This is coming from someone who went around and told everyone that my only reason for not wanting to get COVID and wanting to follow precautions was because I'm fat. What she did not know is I have factor V Leiden. I clot super fast, and it also causes major blood clots just because of a small trauma. No, I didn't want COVID because the after effects would be far worse for myself and my son, who also has it, than the rest. Like, I'm pretty healthy, but I'm pretty sure I'd be okay with COVID. But the whole blood clot after the fact, since COVID was causing blood clots, please keep it away from me. And this was a non-mask wearing person who I did try to stay away from, not because I did not like her, but because I knew she wasn't wearing a mask. I knew she wasn't following, social distancing or anything. And so for her to go around and say this, it was hurtful. But then this is the same person who was talking about how her daughter is going to hell because she thinks she's a bisexual. And I'm like, wow, I don't need to know that about your daughter. And I really didn't want to know that you felt that way. Her Facebook blows up constantly with Bible verses. Absolutely nothing she follows in life. Absolutely, obviously nothing she believes in. She would much rather say she is someone than she really is. But I'm vilified because of how I feel. Thankfully, my bosses do know this about me. I was very open with them when they bought the school and saying, hey, this is how I feel and how I believe. If that is going to cause a problem for you, please let me know. I never bring it into work. I have no distasteful tattoos that would be offensive to older people that would not understand or would refuse to understand how I believe. My witch tattoo is up very high on my thigh. I'm not showing my legs at work, so we're good. And they were super awesome about it. In fact, they were like, hey, can you smudge the school? Because we got some weird stuff going on. And I'm like, yes. So I'm very lucky that my boss and his partner are so open to how I feel. Believe it or not, super conservative gay couple and still super awesome in how I believe. But again, it's not something I can discuss in front of students. It's not something I can discuss in front of clients. Like my Instagram, I have my cats and hair, great makeup day, stuff like that on my Instagram, because again, the repercussions to how I believe tends to be on the ignorant side, because I don't follow what they want. But many who claim to be Christian would prefer you to pretend to be something you're not than to embrace who you are and how you believe. I don't believe that there is not a God. I do believe that there's balance in this world, that God, goddess, female, male. I believe that there are other deities. I can't tell you that the Romans were wrong or that the Greeks were wrong or that, the Norse or the English, the Celts, I can't tell you any of them are wrong. But their gods have lasted through all these years. I know that I find peace to the deities I pray to and to the deities that I go to for help. My son I've allowed him to be just whoever he wants to be. I've never pushed religion either way. And he insists, he's an atheist, but he insists on my cats having a collar with the goddess Bastet from Egypt on their, on the collars. So we have little Bastets on my cats' collars to keep them safe because goddess of cats and the protection of cats. So we do odd things like that. And it's great behind closed doors. It's definitely, again, not something I'm promoting on Facebook saying, hey, Andromeda has we had to put a new bast on Andromeda. I have to buy bags of them because the cats do lose them. In fact, he named our kitten Bast, which ended up being perfect because she's kind of a little terrorist. So, instead of Bast, we call her other things. But all in all, again, even he keeps that to himself for the most part. Unless he wants to make someone feel uncomfortable, then he has no problem being like, hey, my mom's a pagan. It's awesome. And then he just wants to watch people kind of get creeped out. But it's not something we can share. And, if you don't follow the social norms or the socially acceptable religion, you're not accepted. You're treated as if you don't matter. My soon-to-be ex-husband, he did not respect my choice in religion, and it was actually quite funny. He's a Catholic, and one of my students is Muslim. She immigrated to the United States from Iraq, and she is more accepting of what I believe in than my own husband, where there is no, language barrier. And she actually asked me to look up different things in her religion. And she was like, you might find it interesting. She knows I actually enjoy reading about religions. I enjoy reading the Bible to be knowledgeable. I took a world religions class in college, which was absolutely fascinating, hearing about what's really in the Bible versus what's not. My humanities professor was, at the end of the day, a Catholic priest he was also an archaeologist and was invited to read the Greek Bible in Rome. He took his collar off the last day and walked away from Catholicism and Christianity as a whole, because he said what we read in today's Bible is not what the oldest Bible states in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Most notably, it is about love. It is about caring for others. And he said the way that time has bastardized Christianity is actually an ugly thing. And that was part of, it helped me in making a deciding factor on what I did believe in, because knowing that I could still respect and appreciate Christianity as a whole with people, I also know what to hold back, who to hold back from, as well as who to be scared of because of terrifying ways that they have turned and twisted something that is supposed to be a beautiful thing. I don't think any religion was ever made to be an ugly thing. I think at the core, it was always meant to be a beautiful part of life to have faith and to have love. And man and woman, but people take it and they run with it with a mob mentality. And they have made it a very ugly, disturbing thing. They have gone from loving thy neighbor to, okay, well, I had an affair with so-and-so down the road, but that's okay because I apologized for that. To, well, they're a gay couple, I can hate them. They're going to hell because they're gay. Halt. You know, you've had your own sins that you need to account for on your own. Old couple down the road, they owe you nothing. And you don't know at the end of the day how their soul is, because they probably have a much more beautiful soul than you. Like, my husband will sit here and he will spout scripture all day. He's very knowledgeable. He's actually very smart, but he's a narcissist. And he's an alcoholic. He will sit and drink and drink and drink. He will become abusive, but that's okay because he's a Catholic. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? And he's like, you're going to hell because you're a pagan. And I'm like, we don't know that. Nobody knows until the final day. So keep that to yourself. He actually shared that information with his family, who made the choice to not be a part of our family. I only met 2 of my stepkids because of this. I did not meet any of his family. I've met 2 of his kids. I never met my mother-in-law, his stepmother, his stepfather. I never met any of them because he told them I was a pagan, and they made the choice to not associate with me because I am not a good person. At the end of the day, they associate with him every day. I, on the other hand, raised my son by myself for 20 years, never missed a day. I've never intentionally hurt anyone. I love animals to a point where I have a cat that is psycho, and she's not mean, but she's not nice. She's not feral. She just doesn't like people. She still has a home. She doesn't go near me, but she still has a home because I love animals. I just dog sat his dog for a week so that he could go to Florida, and I knew she would be cared for in my house. I will go above and beyond for any of my students, for anyone for that matter, to make sure people are taken care of. I've raised more kids than I've had. I've birthed 1. I claim 2 additional children that I've raised with no help from their parents financially. I love doing, and I love seeing people happy. But when people find out how I feel in a religious sense, I'm vilified and I'm a bad person. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I love people just because they're human. My husband is a raging racist. That came out after we got married. That was part of the I'm done when he decided to go off on some of my friends who have similar beliefs that I do, and he was telling them why they were wrong. And I was like, oh, homie, no, bye. I kicked him out like a week later. So humanity as a whole, I love. Mobs about religion, not so much. But again, being in the Bible Belt, I am the minority. I am the one that, I practice. I'm very eclectic. I'm very solitary because I don't want people to freak out or kick me out of my home, even if they don't feel comfortable with content in my home. I mean, these are things that could happen. I don't have a lease. My landlord could easily see my books and become uncomfortable and tell me to leave. All because I don't follow the social norm. It's interesting to me that I can see so many people who are allowed to worship as they please, but there are still so many of us that can't because we're not accepted. I don't compare myself with other races because racism is completely different, but we aren't accepted when the truth is known. I have to hide it, and I'm okay with that, just so I can be happy. I know that, it's becoming more acceptable. It's rapidly becoming more of the normal for people to practice Wicca and other pagan religions. And that makes my heart so happy, not just for myself, but for so many others that can meet and greet each other and be respectful at the beginning and the end of each day and not fear what will happen if others find out about it. Good morning. There are numerous people who know that they have to keep it kind of in a wraps. Yeah, you can wear all black and be goth all you want, but people don't sit and think, I wonder how they feel. Some people do and automatically assume Satanist. But I would rather befriend true Satanists than a right-wing nut job. True Satanists actually have morals that I firmly believe in about how to treat humanity and what you deserve if you're a bad person, like genuinely bad person. I never thought the day would come where I would say that when I was younger. But again, researching different religions, I saw that you do have a group of Satanists who they don't sacrifice things. They're not hurting small animals or people. They actually have a firm moral code about what is not acceptable from humans to other humans. They firmly believe if you rape, you are the lowest of the low and do not deserve to breathe. If you murder, if you touch a child, and I'm like, I see your point. I don't think your life should be taken, sometimes, but I do see that point. And other people won't research that to see that that is a thing. We so blindly follow what we've been told that numerous people are forgotten about or harmed by not researching what would have made a great situation. It's much like being transgender. They are who they are. And if you don't research it and you don't respect his, her, they, them, whatever pronoun they use, that's on you. That's not on them. But unfortunately, they are treated like it's on them. So we have had to adjust to that in recent times, and luckily that's starting to change. So yeah, sorry, kind of long-winded.
Are you done with your speaking, Julie?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry.
No, okay. You're just fine. You're just fine. Thank you so much. I was muted. I apologize for that. I do have one other announcement that I forgot about. I'm looking for someone else to be a Sunday morning service leader So if you're interested in that or think you might want to try it out, and if you get tired of it, you can let me know and we'll find somebody else. So I am looking for another person to do that. Katie, with her streaming us on YouTube, has a bit more than she needs. So we need to get somebody to take her place.
She does so much work for the church.
Yes, she does. Okay. I'm going to finish in with our the song that we usually sing at church. As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness that we learn light our hearts till we return. And we'll take about a 10-minute break and be back at 10 after 11.